You know, I had one of these Ted Nugent dreams again the other night.
I didn't know you were having more than one, but all right, please elaborate. I didn't even know you were having this as a recurring thing.
Yeah, I didn't really think much of it too, but then I just kind of had one of those dreams. Well, mostly it's like, it sounds weird. Like a lot of times I don't dream nearly as often, but I had this dream where I was at the house and then Uncle Ted showed up and you had to call him Uncle Ted. That was the important thing of it. Just like we were on
He's
one of
armed,
his
so you don't have a choice really.
Excursion. It was old Ted too. It's not like it was like, Ted from the past. It was like Ted of today and whatnot. And he shows up and he's got this, for some reason, baby deer that he just like lets in the house and just starts running around, just like destroying stuff like some wild dog, And then I remember the biggest dilemma in the dream, because you know how dreams always seem to have lots of times a dilemma that never can be solved. It's like, that's almost like the moral of a dream, is that like there's a problem that you can't solve whatsoever, no matter how hard you try. Was that like, well, what are we going to make for dinner for Ted? Since Uncle Ted's here, Laura, what are we going to make? We got to make something great that he's going to enjoy. Should we make potato tacos? Yeah, he probably would like that.
I never thought of it till you brought it up, but that's true. There's always some like dilemma in a dream you just can't figure out. Or it's like, or you fix one thing, another thing pops up. Maybe that's just me, but I never thought of it till you brought that up.
Yeah, well, it's like I think about like when there is a dream, it's mostly there's always a dilemma. And, a lot of times I have those dreams where I find something cool. It's like a buying dream. So I'm like at a store and there's some retro game or movie collection or something that technically doesn't exist in real life, but you find like, oh, this is so amazing. And the price, it's so good. It's so good. And then there might be another choice in there too. And then the dilemma is the choice, And then of course, sometimes what happens is then you wake up and you have none of it. And you're like, damn it, it was not real. I thought this was going to be the coolest thing ever. And it sounds weird to have dreams about shopping. It sounds like one of those, it sounds like an old fashioned, it sounds like a 1980s thing. It's like, I have dreams of going to the mall and shopping, but no, I have dreams of buying weird random movies collections and so on like that don't actually exist.
Now I'm just imagining, to go back to the Ted Nugent thing, because that sounds like, okay, we got to try and make Uncle Ted some dinner, or he's going to shoot us because he's Ted Nugent. And then you got this baby deer running around the house like you're chasing it like it's the golden rabbit from Mario 64. And then like you just keep diving, and by the time like it takes you too long to get up, it just moves out, like just barely miss it every time,
Yeah, well, it was a weird one too, because it's like
he's just not any. By the time you catch you, like anything but the deer. I thought you like killing deer, not this one.
Yeah, no, he's like, I'm raising this one as my own. And it was a weird one too, because like, Ted came in his, he had a motorhome. So he was staying there like the total uncle figure, like the uncle who comes to your house and is going to stay for like a week because he's got nothing better to do, you know what I mean? Except for it was Ted Nugent just taking a time off to come hang out, and then I asked him like, yo, Ted, about with that final tour that you had, why the hell was there like no, tour dates on like the whole entire west side of the United States?
Well, you're asking Uncle Ted, so I'm sure he'd come up with you're asking Dream Uncle Ted, so I'm sure he'd give you a very crazy answer, like he himself was part of SEAL Team 6 and killed bin Laden or something like that, so he was busy at the time. Or some shit like that.
That sounds like when Uncle Jesse Ventura comes over to the house. I was a Navy SEAL. You wouldn't understand. Now, would you? Were you in the Navy SEALs? Like, yeah, I don't know if I've had an Uncle Jesse Ventura dream. I like how they're always the uncle figure, too. It's like they're like not technically related, but you just refer to them as uncle because that's sort of how they are in life.
Well, I do think it's kind of funny because a lot of people like will seek like father figures through like what, parasocial relationships or whatever, but you're not seeking a father's figure. You're seeking an uncle.
Yeah, and yeah, very specific. And I got certain ones I guess I've chosen, or at least my dreams have chosen for me, and so on. And I think I never got around to the question. That was like one of those ones, like I was like, how am I going to ask Ted about that concert thing? Like, what I mean? Is that going to spoil dinner? As if I ask him why he didn't play anything from like California to like Colorado? Like I would have traveled. I would have traveled a bit. I was planning on going to Nevada, you know what I mean, for that final Ted tour. And just never happened. It was never in the cards, I guess. I don't know, at least not for the West Side.
This is going to seem like I'm not trying to derail it, but the way you're explaining that, some of this popped in my head. Have you seen the movie I'm Thinking About Ending Things?
No, I don't think so. I don't know if I've even heard of that movie.
It's a really weird. Is Andy Kaufman the guy? Is Andy Kaufman the guy who did Adaptation, the writer of Adaptation?
No, because I think Andy Kaufman died by that point. I could be wrong.
Oh no, I'm mixing names up.
Because Andy Kaufman's the dude from Taxi. No. He's from Taxi, and then he had a little bit of a wrestling stint for a moment.
No, I'm thinking not Andy Kaufman. I'm thinking of Man on the Moon. No, I'm thinking of maybe Charlie Kaufman or something. He did Being. I think he wrote Being John Malkovich. He even wrote himself into Adaptation as the main character with his brother. Anyway, he I don't know if he directed, but he wrote this really weird movie, and I don't know. I hated it when I first saw it, but I thought more on it. And I'm like, maybe I got to watch it again, but it's like 2.5 hours long, so. It's weird because you're trying to parse together what the movie is, and by the end you kind of figure it out. But basically, it almost to a certain extent seems like it's shot. It's not a horror movie, but it maybe kind of is. It feels like a horror movie, but it's just social interactions. And it's just like these long shots and long takes of everything being so awkward and quiet at times, and tension just building. And like it's literally like a movie to extent. If you have like social anxiety, it's a horror movie around that to a certain extent. It's even shot because there's some points you're like something scary is going to happen. It's just like a narrow ass hallway, and then like just walk because he's expecting to bump into someone or something like that. Nothing happens. It's just weird shit like that. I don't want to go into the whole thing. I don't want to derail it. Anyway. I'm imagining there's a very tense dinner scene, and I'm imagining Uncle Ted cutting a steak or whatever. It's like, so why didn't you why I don't know why I give you that voice. Why didn't you go have a second tour? And just the steak stops, really bloody. His eyes just look up at you, and then just shot of Laura, just like looks at you. Yourself, like a shot of the hands kind of gripping like some 1970s dinner table, kind of like your dinner cloth, because something about the aesthetic of the 70s dinner cloth and those kind of scenes always adds to it. I don't know,
got a little flower design to it. It's got kind of a mixed match of green and yellows and maybe a little bit of browns mixed in.
yeah then and then you're like, why would you ask me that? I just wasn't how I get when people ask me that, and then just something before this scene has a chance to interrupt, before it get even more tense, someone walks in hey guys, just looks like, hey, so he's not looking to look at the person, he's just looking at you hey, been a while, just really awkward tension shit like that. That's just how I'm imagining that. Sorry, yeah, exactly. I have nowhere to go with this. That's as far as I have. Yeah.
Well, in the dream, Ted was his cheerful self, you know what I mean? And he was just kind of hanging out and so on like that. So it's been a couple days since it was, so now it's getting foggy. And generally, I mostly don't remember dreams that well anyways. Mostly if you do have a dream, it's you remember it for that first waking 5 minutes, and then it's gone, and that's kind of it. Or it's a lot of times, sometimes I just don't have really dreams. It's just you go to sleep, it's dark, you wake up. That was it.
You say it just sounds like some Cotton Hill shit. I don't dream, I die for 8 hours. Something kind of like that.
I prepare for death in my dreams every night. And I look forward to the day that I don't wake back up.
Only hippies dream, Hank. Only hippies dream. Some shit like that.
Yeah, some stuff like that and so on. But yeah, the old Uncle Ted dream and so on there. It was interesting. I was wondering what was going to happen there. And I said, and then that deer was just running around not it was freaked out, but just picture when someone has a bad dog that's they say oh, the dog's fine, don't worry about the dog, but it's clearly the dog's not meant for indoor life. It's primal. It's still jumping on shit, chewing on things, pulling out the electrical wires, taking a shit in the corner. You know what I mean? And the lady just lets it happen, almost just what's her name in that fucking Kevin Smith movie? Well, it's not a Kevin Smith movie, but Kevin Smith's in it, and she just has the kid. She's he's just doing his thing. Don't worry about him. Yeah, Catch and Release. There we go. With what's her name from
Juliette Lewis.
California? Juliette Lewis. Yeah, she's got the kid there that's just the shitty shitty, like, it's like almost like, I feel like that's the lazy, like, parent excuse. Be like, well, I don't, how I could get by without having to do any parenting? Just say he's doing his thing, And if it gets loud here for a second, there's a man going with a blower, just blowing the living daylights out of that grass. He's just blowing it hard, steady, fast.
Blowing it for that cash. I don't blame him. He's got to do what he's got to do.
He's blowing it for the cash. That's right. You know what I mean?
I'm imagining, like, because the kid's not here yet. And when the kid gets here, I promise not every episode's going to be about, we won't believe what my kid did today. But I'm imagining kind of like the future where the kid's able to run around and it's at that age where he could do that. And naturally, all kids are going to go through that phase to some extent. But I'm also imagining just kind of like, what if this kid just like easily starts to read me like, I think I could run this shit like in a fucking, once in a year or two when I'm a little bigger, I think I could run this shit. And like, hey buddy, just hits my fucking knee with a hammer. I go down. He's just like, I control the house now, Dad. It just like knocks me out, Next thing you know, like all my fucking comics are like on fire, or like he's like, oh, I'm erasing all your save files on your Switch. Like, no.
He's got you like strapped up in like a crucifixion, like in the dead center with all your comics and media being burned around you in a circle, like some kind of weird witch hunt. But he just does it for his entertainment.
He has a bow and arrow just like shooting like apples on my head. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Just like, I don't know why I'm making, and then, so I don't know why I'm turning my son who's not even here yet into like, I'm sure he'll be a fine kid.
The world's greatest fear. I feel like any parent's fear is that they will be in their own horror movie where their son is the murderer and the torturist.
It's not like a likely fear. It's not the top of my fears, but there's enough thing that, you can't feel good when like it's your kid on the 6 o'clock news, like it can't be a good feeling. So
and then the thing you're pissed off is like, dude, he burned my fucking 1970s, Batman collection right there. Look, they even got a close shot of it on the news. Those fucks.
Yeah. So
they're like, look at this fucking nerd.
No, I don't think we'll be that. But in that ballpark, some of the usual listeners might be asking, why aren't you guys covering? Because first off, been a bit of an absence because just been busy lately, mostly on my end. I'm sure you've been busy with stuff too, but absence has been because of me mostly. But people probably asking, why aren't you guys covering the Knuckles show, or why aren't you guys covering Justice League? Like, well,
the Knuckles show hasn't come out yet, but
by the time this episode comes out, it might be.
By the time I get around to rolling with it for sure, but yeah.
And then, assuming it even comes over here, I think it is, but early reviews have been very like meh, and I just might wait for the clips on that one. Not that I take reviews that seriously on some things. And then the Justice League thing, for some reason, I don't know what it is, but like every other DCEU thing that comes out I'm not sure what the release schedule is, but sometimes it's like same as America. Sometimes it's like a month or two later. Like I have no idea how it works, because the first one, Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1, like that came out at the same time. This one did not. It's like every other one. I have no idea why it's like that,
Yeah, well, I got mine in the mail yesterday. I haven't sat down and watched it yet. I was still trying to finish another movie, and I was like, well, I got a moment. And then, yeah, it's weird how that is. So sometimes I just feel like just being over there in Europe, you just need to get some a different way. I'm not going to say exactly how, but some special way that allows you to just check out, all the American entertainment without any worry of the Dutch man, putting you down and telling you what you can and can't watch.
You think it's like the enforcer is like a big buff guy in clocks, like clumped guy, like on a bicycle. Like he's like, "Excuse me, what are you doing here? No, this is not allowed. This is clearly against Dutch customs. What are you doing?"
This is the guy who pulled the lever when the Nazis came to Holland and said, "I sat there and watched them all drown." It brought me great pleasure, even though we lost our fields.
He was one of the...
Somehow he's still alive to this day. I don't know why he is, because let's be honest, probably none of those guys are alive by this point, but...
yeah, this is one of the turncoats, yeah. No, what was I gonna say? Yeah, some of the stuff just doesn't come here when it does. And have you heard like some of the early reviews of the Knuckles thing? It's a little worrying.
The only one I heard was from you when you said that like they focus on like the fat friend kind of or whatever it was.
Apparently, I mean, I haven't seen it, but apparently, I mean, and if I had Paramount Plus, I'd just watch it. But I don't know if I want to buy it just for that.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. I looked at. I was like, oh yeah, I got to go resubscribe to Paramount, and I tried loading up the app yesterday. It sounds like these ones where you get that old person problem. And then the app was having a pain in the ass. I was like, yeah, I'll think about it. I'll cross that bridge when it gets to Friday, maybe.
It's like apparently, I mean, it's one of those things where how do I put this? I know it's not going to be like, oh, why don't you have like Team Hooligan? Why don't you have Rouge? Why don't you have Metal Sonic and Metal Knuckles? And I know, it's not that. Maybe just
why don't you have Big the Cat?
Yeah,
said no
some
one.
people by this point, maybe, sure. By this point, you know, there's that point where I'm not going to lie, where I was just like, fuck Big the Cat, fuck anybody who likes him. But at this point, I'm like, whatever, sure, okay.
Be you. You be you.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to think, if they had to put like Big the Cat in a movie as one character, or had to make a movie more based on Sonic Unleashed, I'm like, shit. Big, I guess. Okay, yeah, I know.
What if instead of Sonic turning into a werewolf, he just turned into Big the Cat?
I don't know. That's kind of like it's different. It's different. I mean, the Unleashed thing. I'm wondering if.
And then when Big the Cat, instead, he's played by John Goodman or voiced by John Goodman.
Okay, John Goodman. John Goodman is Big the Cat. I can get behind that. But he's not doing it like Froggy. He's playing it like John Goodman. They just let John Goodman improv, and he's like exasperated. He's tired. Like, what the fuck is this? Where's that goddamn frog? You know, like he's just like he's playing it like he's just pissed off the whole time. Like that kind of John Goodman. Not
that would be
Disney
sweet.
Not Disney John Goodman. Like John Goodman when he does like a hard drama like Red State.
Like a Coen Brothers John Goodman.
Coen Brothers John Goodman, where as cartoony as he gets is he's a one-eyed man that beats the fuck out of George Clooney, you know? So
yeah.
Like I think I could that like I get behind that, but it's more of like I'm not like I understand there's gonna be more humans in it, but they're doing the thing where apparently from what I've heard early reviews is it's not that he's not in it the whole way. It's just he takes the back seat for like 2 episodes and 6 episodes long. So that's a big chunk of it. And apparently as it goes on, it becomes more of a sports comedy than it does a Knuckles show. And the action scene just kind of pops in near the end to wrap shit up that way. And I was, and like, yeah, so that's just a little bit of a, you guys are going in the right direction, but this is probably just a quick little like way to save, I don't know, keep the IP going, keep brand awareness up, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's always my biggest. This is why I just stopped generally watching TV unless it's animated for especially new stuff. Is because I feel like that happens so much. You watch a trailer and it looks badass because they showed you all the badass scenes that take up like the 2 minutes or whatever it is. So like, oh, it looks action packed. Looks like they got all kinds of things going on. But then you watch the show and then you kind of realize it's like, well, all that action you generally saw in the trailer is pretty much all the action in the entire season run. And now you just have to put up with all this filler crap and these other characters that, let's be honest, nobody cares about. And if they say they do, they're just making shit up by this point. And it's just that I think that's the one is I always feel like TV, especially modern TV, just feels like it wastes my time so much. And the worst part too is I think because now they allow episodes to be so much longer than normal. Like you kind of realize that sometimes there's a good thing that like 44 minutes, that's a good cap. You know what I mean? Like if you really have a long thing, make it 2 episodes. That's fine. Then they're like the little mini movie ones, like the Hercules or Xena back in the day. That's fine, you know. But or even Young Indiana Jones. But nowadays, when it's like, oh, it's an episode, it's an hour and 20 minutes long. You're like, well, now it's just a short movie, but I know it's not movie quality. So what are you doing? You know, like, come on, guys. You know, I hate to sort of say it's like they let the editors go home early and it's just be like, yeah. Who cares? You know what I mean? It's sometimes like a Stephen King book where it's like it's a great idea, but then he writes, you know, an extra 600 pages more than it probably needed to be.
Actually, on that note, on TV, go back to video games and TV. I know you probably haven't seen it, But I'd say if you have a minute, give it a chance. Fallout is actually pretty good.
Dude, Cisco was telling me that like the last couple days. He kept giving me updates on each episode. He's like, it's pretty good, staying good. No filler characters, no junk characters. It just seems to be accurate to the game. I'm like, okay. You know what? I might have to give that the college try.
Here's one thing I'm going to give you just for the sake of the other side, just slightly. So it's not that it's not nonstop action. There is drama, but it's basically good, bad, and the ugly is more or less what it is. You have
that's not a bad way to go.
You have a girl leaving the vault. You have a ghoul who remembers what the world was like before. And then you have a Brotherhood of Steel knight trying to earn his stripes. And eventually they sometimes cut back to the past. Not all the time. There's like 1 or 2 episodes where they spend a good amount of time in the past, but it's interesting because it's kind of like a 50s version of like a futuristic 50s version of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's kind of, it gives that kind of vibe. And then there's another one where they cut back to the vault because there's people back in the vault, but it's actually kind of interesting. It's not like all the running gun stuff, but like kind of like after all this action, the monotony of the vault and how it kind of plays into, and it helps expand on it. So without spoiling it, because I can't help it. Whenever I watch a live action thing, I'm like, is this going to piss off Spencer? Is that going to piss off Spencer? Because it's likely something we're going to talk about on the show. So I got to automatically think of my defense if we do cover it. So, but at the exact same time, though, when they cut back to the vault, there is enough interesting things going on. And it's rather than being that kind of like, I'm not sure if it's 100% lore accurate, because all I know is Fallout 3, New Vegas, and 4, really. And I've heard parts of 1 and 2. It's more of like it takes place in the world. So you're not interacting with Piper. You're not interacting with this character or that character, as far as I know. It just takes place in that world.
Yeah, and that makes sense. That's each game's sort of like in a different time frame anyway. So even themselves don't really necessarily interact from one to the next to the next. So, no, as I said, like, trailer-wise and everything, it looks kind of cool, but, it's like, that's the thing. It's kind of like, it's similar to like with like the Halo show. Like if you look at it like in a trailer, it's like, yeah, there's a bunch of great action scenes, but then you see they kind of did that pairs in the first episode and the last episode, and then budget runs slim in the middle, and those action scenes that were pretty cool, I don't know, they just don't happen too often. And I only saw the first episode of the Halo thing, but
the worst case scenario I can think of that was Westworld, and when I was watching it, I was into it, but when they revealed the big twist, you're like, wait a minute, because they do this thing where you're watching it and you're like, oh, okay, how are they finding the time to do all this back and forth? And then you realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a flashback. That was a surprise. This is a flashback, and this character right here is actually that character right there. Oh, okay, that's clever. And then you stop and think about it. Not one robot has really revolted yet. Then the revolution happens at the last episode where Anthony Hopkins, I don't give a shit. I don't think most people give a shit by this point. Anthony Hopkins gets shot in the back of the head. And it's like, that's the whole concept of the story. You wait for the last shot of the last episode for the robot to get shot, for the robot to shoot him in the back of the head, So it's kind of like, by the time season 2 came out, I'm like, I don't give a shit. It took too long to get here.
Well, and I feel like I'd just stick with the original Michael Crichton movie. You know what I mean? Like, he literally writes and directs it himself anyway, so why would I not want that variation of it? Yeah.
I mean, it had good moments,
Yeah. Speaking of shows, though, there was one that I watched that I started. Obviously, I haven't got that far into it, but like I was kind of waiting for it to kind of all be there. But it's that X-Men 97 one. I kind of gave that I'm like, okay, the episodes look like they're all about done or close to it at least. And now I'll give it a little bit of a watch. And I started up, and it is pretty good overall. I haven't had too much. You can see some things where like there's some writing in there. It's like, well, that doesn't feel like 90s writing. That feels a little bit more like sometimes the way that Jubilee talks. And now I'm just super nitpicking it. Be like, no, I don't think that feels like how a 90s character would have said it. But whatever, that's okay. Like, there's probably, I hate to sort of say, there's probably somebody writing it who's probably like 10 years younger than us. So they probably didn't even experience the 90s.
It's 90s. It's retro, man. It's for
but overall, it's like, it's action packed. It's got all the characters in there so far, and it continues the thing. Like, it seems like they did a pretty solid job on it, As I said, I don't know if it's going to drop the ball. I remember this was just before, I just saw like a tidbit of it, just almost like, oh, they're going to make Morphin Wolverine gay. I'm like, well, that just sounds like, clickbaity type stuff. It's just like, there's a hard cut scene of just more fucking Wolverine in the ass. Just eyeing the camera, Scott, get out of here!
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. I have not seen it because I don't have Disney Plus anymore. I'll get it eventually. But at the exact same time, if there were two mutants that could get away, that I'm like, if you told me they were gay, thinking about it, like, I can kind of see it. Like Morph, they don't even have a gender. They swap back and forth between guy and girl. Isn't there like an episode where he even turned into like Jean for a second? You miss this, don't you, Logan? Like, like doesn't that happen in the original show at some point? So it's
well, because Morph, he's a comedian. He likes to fuck with people. That's how he got killed for a while.
Hey, you sucked my dick. It's not funny.
Slaps across the face. Fag! Damn it, you got me again.
Like it's more of like, it's not even that, it's more of like the idea of like they don't even really have a gender. It's just like someone who constantly changes between this and that, and I kind of that makes sense for that character. But in the context of Wolverine, dude's been alive for like 200 years. At some point he's probably had to go like, oh, let's see what this is about. I can kind of see that.
Every time I date a woman, they die. Every fucking time. Literally every time, and they die the exact same way. It's like these writers don't have a whole lot of creative juices about it. They just put me through the same fucking trials and tribulations that I already went through since the 1800s. Just new country, new woman, same death.
Yeah. It's you. It's Sabretooth or some shit. Yeah. No. I want to see it. I've heard good things about it. So.
Yeah, as I said, I kind of waited to it, and then I was like, I'll watch this, then I'll cancel that Disney Plus for a while, because that's mostly what I do is like I just have it for like a moment, and then I kind of cancel it. And I feel that's what you got to do with most of those things. There's no reason to hold on to them for too long, especially for the fact that I barely watch any of the streaming things. I mostly still only watch VHSs, DVDs, and Blu-rays. But it's one of those ones where, it's solid so far. It does feel like it hits just right. It looks like a DCU movie. Like that's the best way. It kind of feels like in that kind of thing, it's retro, but still kind of modern, but not so modern that it feels out of the place. It seems they make Bishop more of a main character, which I think is actually kind of cool. Because he's only in so many episodes in the old series. I mean, granted, you have so many X-Men, you can only have so many episodes with him. I mean, Iceman, it's like one of the original X-Men. He's got like one episode or two episodes, like in the entire 73 episodes, I think.
Wasn't the X-Men video game kind of more like based on the animated series for Sega Genesis?
Yes, both of those ones were.
Which is weird because they made Nightcrawler because he was only in a few episodes. They made him like one of the main playable characters in that. Which that bummed me out when I was a kid because I was like, oh, Nightcrawler's the coolest one, and then he's only in like 3 episodes. Oh, not too bad,
Yeah, cool. Because that was the thing is in that original X-Men game, the character choices they gave you was Wolverine, of course, Cyclops, Gambit, and Nightcrawler. And probably it's just that one that they're just like, you know what? Nightcrawler's got such a cool ability. You can shuffle through walls and everything like that. So that'll make it kind of fun and interesting. It'll be like that kind of concept. And then, but it's funny, even like in the second X-Men game, which that's my favorite X-Men game of all time, is X-Men 2, The Clone Wars on Sega Genesis, is that one's got a bunch of characters you can play as. Not only can you play as those 4 guys still, you can play as Psylocke, you can play as Beast, you can play as Magneto, and that's it, I think. But still, that's actually, for that time period, I was like, that's a solid roster of characters I can go through.
Yeah. I want to check that show out when I'm just kind of waiting for that to finish and get like a few more things happening. So I don't know. Been a little busy lately. So Fallout was the one, as far as shows go, of new shows, that's the only one I was really caught up on. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I was kind of getting, I was just going to say, like, with the X-Men thing, is like I was kind of getting into it anyways because I just went on like this Wolverine marathon of just reading a bunch of Wolverine books. I started with I'm going to reread the Frank Miller and Chris Claremont one again, and then from there I was just like, oh, here's a bunch of ones on Comixology Unlimited. Sure, I'll read this one. I'll check this one out here. And then I read like the ones like the Wolverine origin ones where it's just like where he's the little rich sick boy, in the house, and for some reason, like the groundskeeper guy looks like Wolverine. So you're like that's kind of bizarre. I know they're doing that to try to throw you a curveball here, but like it seems like that's his real father out there as the guy drinking beer at night, saying "fuck these rich cunts," you know. But then I found this one series that was really good so far. It's called Wolverine Origins. They all have about origin in their name, but it ran from like 2006 to 2010, and each graphic novel pretty much is just one of these ones where it's just Wolverine. It's in the future at first, or the present. He interacts with somebody, you know, whether it be another X-Men or whether it be, you know, someone like Captain America or any of that stuff, and then it kind of has flashbacks to like back in the day, like either when they first met or something like that. And it's just got this cool pairing. Like when they do the Captain America one, Wolverine's just hanging out like in the fucking Captain America museum, drinking beer, you know, remembering the old war days together of Cap and Nick Fury and all that stuff, and being like, I was a piece of fucking shit, you know, and that guy was just trying to do the right thing, you know, one of those moments. But and Bucky, fuck Bucky, huh?
Was he trying to have too much fun with some POWs or something?
No, just Wolverine just being the killing machine and so on like that, and Cap kind of knowing how to lead and so on, and a youthful Cap that people didn't believe in yet, and then, you know, Cap shows the way, kind of. But yeah, each one of these books, but they've been great. Like I've been like, man, this is actually a real good series. I just finished. There was one. The 5th book was the Deadpool one, so it had Deadpool comes in, and whatnot, and then they've intermixed like with Wolverine has this, you know, bastard son that he's trying to, you know, make amends with because he wasn't there with your fun. Yeah, that guy, I think.
Fuck him.
Yeah, he's kind of douchey. I don't know if I really like that. Sometimes I hate to start saying. Sometimes I kind of hate when they start to add random like kid characters. Like, oh yeah, by the way, at some point, you know, they had this random bastard kid. I feel like that's such a common story thing, but whatever. The Wolverine part of everything makes up for even that weird character in there.
Did you by chance see the Wolverine and Deadpool trailer?
No, I haven't seen. I think I saw the previous one that played with Dune too, but I haven't seen the new one.
They actually have the him interacting with Wolverine, not just the, you know, like tease at the end. You actually see him interacting with him, and it looks pretty good. And best part is, it doesn't look like they showed the whole movie. It looks like cool. Like a little bit of. I'm sure someone has. I haven't heard anybody make this comparison yet, but I think it's to some extent pulling a little bit of like some inspiration from Old Man Logan. And the reason I say that is because people might say Logan is a little bit of that, and maybe to some extent it is, to like very loosely, but in this one still kind of loosely. But the reason is in Loki, there's like the TVA, which is basically time cops. And if they don't like things from certain time, if they don't want things from a certain like time, like in a certain timeline, they zap them and they get sent to like this wasteland. And we only saw a little bit of that wasteland in the Loki show, but in this, it looks like we're spending a lot of time in the wasteland, at least what they showed in the trailer. So we're seeing like what looks like Mad Max versions of like Fox X-Men characters. You see there's like a big giant like dead Ant-Man with its helmet is like, you know, kind of like the front of like a building kind of, you know, so which I think something very similar was in Old Man Logan. So it
interesting. Looks like, well, I also kind of wonder if it's got, because you say that like you see Mad Max versions, because that's like the Age of Apocalypse. I wonder if it's that look that they're going with.
From what I never read Age of Apocalypse, but from what I remember, I just say more Mad Max just because it's all dusty. People are carrying all Road Warriored out basically. But
well, that's kind of what Age of Apocalypse was that like Apocalypse pretty much wins, and then the, you know, almost like nuclear fallout, and then the characters who survive, and they all have that kind of punk rock look and everything, which is pretty neat. One, I think it's a give or take early '90s book, which sounds about right, but.
The bad guy, at least one of the bad guys from the trailer, is Charles Xavier's sister. So,
okay,
that could be interesting. I'm looking for, and I know it just has to be the right thing. But because I know of like last few episodes, like, you know what, man, I'm like, I love superhero stuff, I love genre stuff, but I'm getting really tired. I just kind of want to watch like a movie that just comes out and there's just one of it, and I still like superhero stuff, but I'm really getting tired of it. And then all of a sudden, like, bro, Keanu Reeves is fucking Shadow, bro. Oh, did you see the Wolverine Deadpool trailer? Whoa, dude. So it just takes the right thing to go back to like the logic of a 14-year-old,
Well, I think what it is it seems like, like the Deadpool one, that might be that one where like, here's one that's going to be legitimately good, not just going to be okay. Because I feel like that's the problem with so many of the other ones is they've just been in that, it's okay. Like that's like how like walking out of so many of them have been. And I think that's what's missing. And it's even like weird because as I said, like I just fell into like that big Wolverine. I was just like, okay, I'm reading a bunch of Wolverine stuff. Been reading a new Punisher one that's kind of interesting too. Kind of interesting. It's a little wordy for a Punisher one. It's like, get this fucking old cunt to stop, talking her mouth off the whole time and just let Punisher do his thing.
Wait, what is he talking about? Like, old?
Well, this is like, okay, it's like Punisher is.
It's like you walk into in the middle of a conversation of like, this fucking old bitch is like, oh, there goes the fucking old Gil starts talking some shit. Like, who the fuck's old Gil, dude?
What it is there's this old lady who's been like, creeping on the Punisher since he was like a 10-year-old boy. And then she's like, you're gonna become the next leader of the Hand, and I will be here to make sure it is done right because you're the Punisher. You are the master of murder. And Punisher's just like, I guess I'll show up, whatever. Free cupcakes, like, okay, cool. No. This is like she's been kind of like creeping on him over time, when she shows up to him, like he's in like the fucking like 60s or whatever, because I think it's supposed to be like, I don't know what the time frame fucking is anymore on some of these ones, but I'm assuming it's like he still goes to Vietnam. Let's just assume that.
Okay.
So she's there like in the 60s, and she's like, hey, little boy, which dagger do you like? And he's like, that's fucking weird. Like, and then he goes back home and then just doesn't worry about it. And she's like, I've been asking you this question your entire life, Punisher. Which dagger do you want? And then I finally got to the part of the book where he's like, I'll take this fucking one right here. He's like, that's the one that, this great samurai warrior, committed seppuku with after he killed 10,000 people or something like that. And I mean, she just banters on the whole time like some old, it's just like, dude, it's like the book's actually not that bad. I actually kind of like where it's going. I think the idea that Punisher is in charge of the Hand, and he's like, he's like, bring me in more fucking rapists and pedophiles and murderers, all stuff. And he's just chopping their heads off left and right and stuff like that. And the fact that like, there was these two Hand members that were like, well, Tommy, he took my fucking like, cupcake at dinner and I was real pissed about it. And then he wouldn't apologize. So I killed him. And then his brother came and said that was a big fucking dick thing to do. So then he killed me. Well, I don't know why I'm saying that because I'm still here, whatever. And then Punisher just kills both of them. And she's like, why'd you do that for? He's like, because they're both a bunch of shitty murderers. I don't give a fuck about their problems. They listen to me and we're solving justice, damn it.
Is this Old Man Frank or is this a new Punisher book?
No, this is a new book. This is like, I think it's a Punisher book that came out in the last couple of years. And once again, it was just one of those ones where like they don't put a whole lot of Punisher books on like the Comixology Unlimited. I noticed. I think they're like few and far between, So it's like, but I was like, I'll give this one a go. And as I said, it is good. And so what they do to get Frank in the Hand, or to get him like why he's working up the Hand. Yeah. So what he's doing is for some reason, I don't know how they've done this yet, but they've resurrected Frank's wife, and that's making him stay there, which I got kind of mixed feelings on those kind of stories. I feel like when they do that kind of stuff, it makes it seem like Frank's a fucking idiot. Like, let's be honest. If you've been around as a superhero for this long, you know that nothing's good is going to be, if someone tells you that they got your dead loved one and they've resurrected her somehow, something like that, you know that no good's going to come from that. Like, I think it's kind of dumb to go like, oh, she's back again. Oh, it's going to be like old times. Like, no, dude, you've seen too much shit, dude. You were in fucking Vietnam. You know what I mean? Like, let's be honest.
The easy part.
Yeah, like the superhero thing. It's like it should be like no, it's like that should be a trap from a fucking mile away. So I don't know how that all kind of ends up going. Because the next thing they're supposed to do is bring back the kids. You know what I mean? But I still feel like I hate to start saying I just feel Frank's too smart for this. He's too smart to believe that this will actually all work out and that the Hand's not going to fuck him over, because we know the Hand's going to fuck him over. At some point. And Frank works alone, damn it. The only person he's got helping him out is fucking Nedry. You know what I mean? And he rides in the van.
Doesn't and I'm not trying to come up with excuses for it, but doesn't the Hand have like their Lazarus equivalent, like the same thing that brought Elektra back or some shit like that?
I think so. I'm pretty sure that's what they're kind of using. I was trying to. Sometimes it's one of those ones like I got to sit there and think, go like, wait, you got this, that. Like it's almost like one of those ones like there's just so much like backed up random superhero knowledge that now intermixes with each other from multiple books, not just DC and Marvel but other things. Then I kind of go, I have to almost refresh myself again. It's like so it's almost something. An old book can be brand new again. Once you haven't read it in 14 years. But no, yeah, and this one here, I think that's sort of what's going with, but they've kind of like. They haven't gone too far. I mean, I'm like issue 5 or something like that. And they haven't gotten too far into it because this old lady talks the fucking book up like she's got fucking Frank Miller in her corner, but it's not like good Frank Miller writing. It's not bad writing. It's just sounds like old lady like, I got the microphone, I got the talking feather, so I'm just gonna sit here and go ba ba da ba da ba da. Hand this ancient things. This we got the Punisher boy here. Ba ba da ba da ba da. It's just like, dude, Frank, if there's one person you can kill, just kill this fucking old lady. Kill this fucking old hag, and then you know what I mean. Then take the fuck. I don't care if you use the the hand boys for like your whatever you need to do, but like I don't know. It's like he's like it's a weird one. It's just like hand boy, come here.
Hand boy, I got a job for you. Hand boy, job.
Yeah, hand boy job.
You say the joke every time. Like it doesn't get old. Doesn't get old. Like don't fucking tell Frank what he can and can't say. He's gonna cut your fucking head off, right?
So I'm just waiting for like don't get me wrong, there's killing in every single issue and so on like that, but it just feels like I feel like Frank needs to get on to it. Feels like we're 5 issues in and we haven't really got onto this mission yet. You know what I mean? Like I don't even know where we're going. To tell you the truth, I don't know what this mission is really, other than the fact that I know that the Hand's gonna screw him over. The wife's going to be fake or it's going to have some Lazarus issues. Like she's mental. You can already tell she's kind of mental. She's like, Frank, why aren't we hanging out at Central Park? Be like, we're on the other side of the fucking world. Did nobody tell you about this yet?
I don't mean to be a dead horse, but I'm just at the same time just imagining just like the one thing that puts a smile on Frank's face other than like stapling like a rapist's nuts together or something is like just being like, hey guys, we all work for the Hand, right? Like, yeah, work for the Hand. We have special jobs for people. What do we call it? What do we call it? Gets like, hand jobs, hand jobs. All employees get hand jobs. Come on. We're just like,
he's running down, giving fucking like high fives and everything like that. It's almost like that scene out of Braveheart.
Or like it's like a Jordan Belfort like pep talk.
Speech. Oh yeah,
we do those fucking hand jobs. Like, all right.
This is Frank in charge of the Hand.
This is the one thing he gets kind of like really like lax about, or like not lax is not the right word, like happy about, but like going off that because that kind of reminds me of like I remember I was reading a Batgirl comic one time, and they did this whole thing where they the comic wasn't that good, if I had to be honest. And it wasn't Barbara, it was Cassandra, is that her name? Yeah, Cassandra. And like at some point Mr. Freeze was in it, and they get Mr. Freeze to work for the League of Assassins by bringing his wife back to life. But then because of her condition and going into the Lazarus, she comes out with powers. She's just like, I am no longer Noah Frost. I am Lazara. Like, okay.
Yeah, and, I will give like the benefit of the doubt. Mr. Freeze is the one character though that I think would do shit to have his wife back, because that's always been his thing. I feel like Punisher, I felt like he buried the fucking hatchet and accepted that in the fucking 70s that he wasn't going to have his family ever back again, and he's past that point. Like, I feel like it seems weird to try to give Punisher, like, I feel like the second that traumatic incident happens, like, the Punisher is a different person. And then it's weird in this book here, they keep trying to do the thing like, you were a killer since you were 10 years old and everything like that, and I kind of feel like, well, maybe he was a killer since Vietnam. Sometimes like when they try to make it out like he's been killing his entire life, it seems like, okay, now you're kind of going a little bit there. I like the idea that he works into it. He almost was. he was just a regular boy hanging out in Hell's Kitchen or wherever the hell he's at. And then, shit happened. He goes to Nam, and then he realizes he's really good at this fucking shit.
Did they retcon some shit? Like there's some bully he beat up when he was a kid and they accidentally killed him, some shit like that?
Well, in this version, his first kill was he was up playing with his fucking like 22 on top of the roof in New York City in the 60s. Just a normal kid thing to do, just firing bullets off. And he looks down, and there was this like weird. There was this man in a business suit that was just beating this other man and his wife in front of like broad daylight, because they owed him money or something like that. And he's like, nobody did anything. My 10-year-old boys. I looked down, and they just went about their business like it was no fucking problem. And you know what? And I just heard the screams, and then when it went away, nobody seemed to care. They didn't hear the screams anymore. But guess what? I still hear the screams. And the only way to get rid of it is I'm going to put this elaborate fucking plan together like Rorschach out of The Watchmen. And I'm going to make this diesel fuel mixture, go to this guy's fucking house, and light him on fire while I wear my Captain America mask, and take out my aerosol, hairspray can and light this bastard up. Because I'm Frank, and it felt good. And I went home and I beat off to it. I became a man overnight. I was 10 years old. I woke up the next day at 16. Driver's license in hand and everything.
Union card.
Union card. I was ready for Vietnam. I signed up early. I did the Indiana Jones thing, except for I wasn't a little bitch and had to sign up at some random country. No, I still went to the good old US of A.
Before I took that man's life, I was listening to the Monkees. Next day, I was listening to Black Sabbath.
Shit changed right here, and it was grand, and it was great. So they have sort of that.
I am a believer.
Yeah. Now I'm the believer. But which is kind of interesting. I'll say they have really cool artwork when they do the flashback. I actually like the artwork way more they have that kind of the best way I almost say it's like in the style similar to that Hawkeye, fucking Hawkeye where he's not wearing the Hawkeye outfit.
The Matt Fraction.
Yeah, that it has artwork like that, so it looks kind of cool when it's like that. And then it goes to like the artwork's good, but it just kind of goes to highly computerized looking like somebody with it still looks good, but yeah, just it's got all the bells and whistles and effects in place here. So
that thing, that retcon right there, I really hope it's an Elseworld type story or something, just because I feel like I'd be lying if I don't own one Punisher comic. He pops up in books I have, but
I own the Punisher Christmas special.
But at the same time, though, I think the thing is the day his family, he went through some shit in Nam, but the day his family got murdered is the day that he snapped. The whole thing that he was always just teetering on the edge, and at age 10, he was like, I came up with this elaborate plan to kill a man. Like that right there. I think that's a good, like if you had to do like another version, like the Ultimate Universe or something, that'd be good origin, or even like for another character, like a villain or something. But like the idea that he was always like a psycho, like I don't know about that,
and this I think is somewhat of a new, because they have a whole new series of Marvel stuff that came out in like the last 4 years. And when I was in that Wolverine mode, I was like, I'll check out this new Wolverine. And it looks kind of cool. The art looks interesting and so on. And I read like the first 2 issues, and it was one of those ones where it's like, it's not that it was bad, but it's like it expected me to read X-Force and Excalibur and X-Men and all. And I was just like, I know you have them all here on Comixology Unlimited, but I'll come back to this maybe at some point if that's the case. Like it was like no, I don't know if I have all that time for every single one of those issues at the moment. I just kind of wanted to see what Wolverine was doing, and then I realized it was less of a Wolverine issue and more of an X-Force issue or something. Like yeah. So I don't know if this Punisher fits into that same Marvel universe is what I'm saying, is maybe that is. Because it is a volume 1, and I think there's only 2 graphic novels out of this section of Punisher. So I think it might be, or at least a catch-up issue. Like it doesn't have like, I mean, granted, it still feels like if this was your first Punisher one, I think you would still be fucking confused as fuck if this was the first one you decided to choose. Because you'd be like, who the fuck is the Hand? And like they only tell like that origin story like in snippets and so on like that. So you're not totally you'd be making up heads and tails of like what's going on if this was like, I always liked this T-shirt. I thought I should buy a Punisher book.
Yeah, well, I'll say on that note, like sometimes people who, no offense against actual Punisher fans, but people who like just see one movie, be like, bro, I get the fucking Punisher. Those can be some of the most fucking annoying people alive sometimes. Not. I mean, I don't have a problem with people who actually. I mean, I don't expect everyone wearing a Batman shirt or a Captain America shirt to read every comic or anything, or even see every movie. But like, there's something particular about like people who, you can have a Punisher shirt because you think it looks cool, but there's something like, bro, Punisher. Like, oh, have you read any of the comics? I don't fucking read comics. It's fucking lame. I just like them because we shoot.
You a fucking nerd.
Yeah, exactly. I just like him because he fucking.
You call me a nerd? Starts pushing you like you want to fucking fight, huh? Fucking nerd.
Yeah. I'm going back right.
You're like, dude, you're the guy wearing the Punisher shirt.
Oh fuck! You commit seppuku right there.
Yeah.
Knife that they offered. That knife they offered.
Yeah, that they offered. Like, which one strikes your fancy, Punisher? Yeah. Well, it's like those ones. Like I've probably read about 5 Punisher graphic novels in my entire life, and they're all like random, like ones. Like they're like not too many interconnecting. Like the Punisher War Journal one that came out like in the late '90s, early 2000s. That one's amazing. Like, and that's the one where it starts off like the first like couple of issues or so are all in Vietnam. It's so good. And it's got that amazing like late '90s kind of artwork. Kind of no different than almost like the Jim Lee Batman behind you. Just when like everybody's like firing on all cylinders. You know what I mean?
Oh, Jim Lee worked on that?
No, it's not Jim Lee. It's somebody else. But I mean, it's like that kind where it's like that. It's like that Jim Lee caliber.
Okay.
But that one was great. And then I like the old Punisher ones too. I think they're fun. Like, but it's weird. They're not easy to come by. They don't do a whole lot of Punisher. I feel like as many reprints maybe, or just like and once again they don't appear on the Kindle Unlimited or Comixology Unlimited too much. So I feel like whenever I see one on there, I'm like, sure, I'll take a gander. What do I got to lose? It's like it's first Punisher I've seen in a while on here. So yeah, and then I got a couple random single issues too. I guess like I got the Punisher Christmas special and some other ones from back in the day.
I haven't really read any comics lately. I've just been too busy.
That's how I start my day. That's like literally like my first like half an hour. It's a perfect restroom experience. You start the day, you get ready, you read a comic book, and you're set and ready to challenge the world. I was working through like the Jim Lee, Chris Claremont like omnibus of X-Men. I was working through that. Yeah,
and I was enjoying it. I just got busy. I had to put it down for a minute, but for a minute, I was actually. I subscribed to Crunchyroll for a second, just for like the free trial, just to watch a couple of shows. And I actually, it didn't look like whatchamacallit. The Trigun reboot was coming out anywhere. So I figured, you know what? I just want to really see this thing. So I just got Crunchyroll and just the whole 7 days, get rid of it kind of thing, Yeah, that. And that was pretty good. Have you seen the Trigun Stampede reboot?
I haven't watched it yet, but somebody else was telling me about it when it initially came out. That they said it was pretty good and so on. I'm like, I have to give it a go. I know it's like it doesn't have like the CG kind of like anime graphics to it.
Well, here's the thing about it. It does have that cell shaded anime look to it. Cell shaded CG look. But the thing is, the reason why that looks bad a lot of the times is because a lot of times they still animate them like anime. So minimal movements, minimal like expressions, and it just looks extra clunky. So minus like the really good fluid drawings. But they have a lot of micro expressions. A lot of the actions very fluid. It has like it's CG animated with the cell shading, but it still looks really good. And there are those moments where if they're standing still, it looks like it's just a regular anime for a second. So I will say Vash. I mean, maybe I'm being biased because I kind of prefer 90s Vash as far as the way he looks. Like he does look a little bit more zoomerish because he has the hoodie and it's the sides are shaved and the hair sticks up like that. Like if there's a way to get this hair on the old Flash, I take the old Flash's outfit, I go with that. But at the same time, it's really good because I never really read. They haven't reprinted the Trigun the manga, and apparently the show ended way before the manga did. So the manga kept going. So there's characters and things that never had a chance to be adapted or presented. So some stuff it totally reimagines and reboots. Other things are characters and things they've yet to that were not in the previous show. Like here's this character or that character he never got to see previously. So
interesting.
Yeah, and it's actually a lot darker, a lot more violent. Where if the original was around like PG-13 that tipped its toes in R, this one tips its toes in PG-13 as majority R most of the time.
Huh. That's pretty cool. As I said, I'd like to give that one maybe a go at some point. You know, I'm not opposed to it. I do always kind of feel like a lot of times when I do watch some of these modern anime, like the drawings, there is in that part of the back of my mind going like, God, it just doesn't look as good as the 90s or the 80s or the 70s. You know, like there's always that sort of thing that like rolls there when you just look at it. It's like, you know, even just I was kind of watching through. I bought this ginormous like super set of Sailor Moons, like every Sailor Moon thing across, you know, 10 DVD discs. Just a massive collection because you have probably nothing better to do for the next year. You know, it's every series. It's Sailor Moon R. It's Sailor Moon T. It's Sailor Moon F. You didn't know about that one, did you? Well, there it is. Including the movies and Crystal. And it's like, so I watched like, I just start off, I'm like, well, let's start off the lazy man way. I'm just going to watch the movies first. I'll just catch up on all those. So I watched all the original ones and they're amazing because it's the classic animation, so on like that. And then I watched the Crystal movie and it's still good and interesting too. But it was that one where you're like, when you watch the previous animation and then you see the Crystal animation, it's not saying the Crystal animation doesn't look good. It's not CG style. It's, you know, I mean, it's computer done, of course, but there's still just something missing. It's like, I don't know what it is. It's just like it's missing that little bit of flavor, that little bit of extra, like, you know, it's probably just nostalgia time. It's probably just like, shut up, old man, and just watch your Sailor Moon Crystal. You know what I mean? Just be grateful you get more Sailor Moon. You're like, huh, yes.
This,
I guess.
This new thing I don't recognize. It makes me feel older, which reminds me I'm going to die one day.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. It's just like, I remember watching Sailor Moon in 1994. Oh, that was, you know, a quarter decade ago. My gosh, where have the times gone?
Well, it's also...
or a quarter decade, I mean quarter century ago. There we go. I was like, wait a second.
I'm like, I thought that's what you meant, but at the same time, I'm not good with math. Like, maybe he knows something I don't. I'm just gonna let him. You know, like, at the same time, I was gonna say, the thing is, I guess I'm kind of like when it comes to like reinventing certain animes. A lot of time I don't really bother with it, but I guess Trigun is a thing we only got a little bit of for a minute, and then it kind of disappeared. Mm-hmm. And then it was kind of some of that cult status. And I always wanted to read the manga, but they're just like $4 or whatever. So, sorry. But yeah, they're super expensive. So when I heard that they were making this thing, I'm like, okay, it's more Trigun. And plus the action actually looks really good. Like it actually
looks really solid.
Really fluid. As long as it looks good, that's the thing. Because for a while, it just looked like shit.
Yeah, well, there's like those ones that look really off or uncanny. One of the best ones to say is Ruby has a very uncanny look to it. Yeah,
like Ruby, even that for a minute, there was, I'm not going to lie. First season of Ruby, I watched just because, it's Rooster Teeth, and I'm surely the show's going to get better. And then I kind of like took a break from season 2. I was like, maybe I'll get around to it eventually, maybe, I don't know. Because you also kind of gave it a little bit of a break because it was like a independently done show trying to present itself as like a big anime, but then I was like, it's not okay, whatever. And then I got kind of like, I don't know how I stumbled upon it, but then somehow like I stumbled upon like part way through season 3, just popped up and recommended. I'm like, okay, like near the end of season 3, they start killing off a bunch of characters. Like, oh shit, this is actually pretty good. And then like after that, like season 4 starts up. I'm like, actually, no, I think I'm done. You know, I wish you guys the best, but it's just a show that I think when I think back on that show, it doesn't really plan out what it's going to do. I think that you're just kind of winging it, really.
Yeah, well, it's one of those ones. I think the character design is really good in that. Like, I think the characters look cool. The thing is
scenes.
I went through like I read like the manga adaptation of it or whatever, and it was like one of those ones where like the manga just looked extremely lazy. Like it just had one of those like artists that's like that barely does backgrounds and things like that. It was just like, dude, how did this person get this fucking job? That's all I have to say. Like you had so many people to choose from, and you picked this person. I'm not saying they're a terrible artist. It's just they look like a lazy artist. I think that was more it. You know, like they could draw good, but they were like, I'm only gonna. There you go. There's a fucking character. Square. That's a window. You know what I mean? Like, fuck it. They're inside. Maybe they're outside. I don't fucking know. Like it was one of those ones where like you actually had kind of a hard time figuring out where you were because there was so little of backgrounds in that book. But I just remember just feeling I was like, I read that first one because I just, as I said, I played the Blaze Blue game that they had the Ruby characters in. I was like, those characters are badass looking. I think that's kind of cool. I wouldn't mind seeing more of this. And then I went with the manga and I was like, oh, this is just kind of a Harry Potter knockoff, but not even really a good knockoff. Just kind of like I hate to sort of say it, but it felt like a little bit of Avatar. It felt like it's one of those books that had that feeling of like if a 15-year-old kid got all like the gumption to put it all together, like that's sort of kind of how it felt, you know. I'm not saying it was god awful, but it was, like it was just one of those ones where it's just like, oh, this probably needs a little bit more like pass-throughs or something, but. Cool character design. That's all I gotta say. I don't know. There's that video game. There's like a beat 'em up game of that. I'm like, that's probably the Ruby version I would play. I could probably do that. That's probably cool enough for that. And I think it's made by whatever, the Shantae company.
Way Forward. No, Way Forward.
Yeah, Way Forward. That's it.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, Ruby was also one of those things because I wanted to like it because it was by Rooster Teeth. And then, like, when I felt like it wasn't going nowhere, I'm like, fuck this. Maybe not. Wishing the best, though. But apparently, Monty Elm, who was one of the head creators of it, he designed a lot of the characters and did a lot of the fight choreography for it. And then he would, like, let everyone else figure out the story around it. So it was kind of loosely. He just wanted to have a reason to have this character and that character fight and have these crazy, elaborate fight scenes, which is cool. But, I mean, you got to have, like, more of a reason to connect everything, in all honesty. And I think that's the show didn't have. Like, it had cool action, had cool character design, but that's all it really had. And I guess other thing, I think it's watching it out of context can be kind of cool, but it's not worth a whole series or season because also Rooster Teeth is now, they're just about to like go under. They're like they're being like canceled or dissolved, basically.
Oh, well, it's like any company. There comes that time where it finally disappears and so on. It's weird to think because that's like one of those ones that there's probably a lot of people that go, Rooster Teeth, what the fuck is that? But it's like, if you grew up in the 2000s, it would, that's a big deal like thing because that was almost like one of the first, like, here's some guys just fucking recording videos in their basement where they're just literally dubbing over fucking Halo clips. And all of a sudden, now they're like top of the world. Fucking, they're at the video game awards on, G4 and all this kind of stuff. And like, so it was kind of like, and that's like a pre-YouTube era. Like, you got famous for videos online before YouTube. So it's like there's a lot of stuff going in that era. So it's almost like when that dissolves and disappears, you'd be like, oh, that's like something special. And I haven't seen a Rooster Teeth thing other than that Ruby thing for a good while. But like the fact that like they are going away, it's like, oh, that's almost like. That's a part of our generation just disappearing.
There was a point when Red versus Blue was on Netflix, and I got caught up on that, and that show ended like 4 or 5 times, and then like there was one season, like the last one was the last, I don't know whatever season it was. I thought the last one, the previous season was the last season. Oh, this season is just kind of like a vignette and more just funny sketches and prequel stuff. Okay, I can get with that. And then like, but they're back. I'm like, oh, it's still going on, huh? Okay, cool. And I guess the final season is just one big long movie, and that's coming out. It's either out now or about to come out. So,
Yeah, well, that'd be kind of interesting. I feel like that's one of those ones where I'd have to almost refresh myself to remember all the stuff, or else there'd be a lot of jokes that would kind of like, pass by me at this point.
I remember when I first saw Red versus Blue, it was the funniest shit in the world. And I bet if I watched it now, there'd probably be a couple kind of lines, but at the same time, probably very much like, oh yeah, okay, kind of like that. Well, no one was doing this at the time, so and you just appreciate, like, not to make it like Not saying it's like FUBU, like for us, by us, but it's kind of like, oh, these guys actually play the game. They know it was fun watching something made by people that like, because you'd see like you'd see like a cartoon or a show reference something like in like the 90s, like Mario Brothers or Pokemon or something like that. But obviously they didn't play it. They just knew it was this thing kids liked, and they just reference, kids like this shit, whatever, But then to see something that actually, kind of like the Newgrounds thing. This is clearly made by people that know the inside jokes and all that kind of thing,
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I think that's kind of what it was. Like, you probably go back and watch. It's kind of like going back and watching Aqua Teen Hunger Force and so on like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's still interesting, but it doesn't hit the same as it did when watching it, I guess at a certain age.
There's still, I can think back like on like the Moon Knights aren't as funny as I thought they once were. Like I remember that, I thought the Moon Knights, oh my God, they're flipping the bird. Oh, they're doing the whole Pong reference, like there's a point where I thought that was the funniest shit in the world. Now I'm like, yeah, okay, the Moon Knights aren't really. I remember how fucking cringy. I had a Moon Knight t-shirt when I was in high school. Like Moon Rules #1. I had like the Moon Knights on there. I'm like, oh my god, like my fat ass with boy tits wearing a fucking Moon Knight t-shirt. Good God, no, But like at the same time, there were still episodes though that I could think back on and actually are funny, like the darker ones. Like I remember, I think one of my favorite ones was kind of like, well, by now it's an earlier episode, but for me it was a later episode. Like Frylock met some people online. He says, oh yeah, I met some friends online. They're just gonna come over and have a party or whatever, and they're just a bunch of fruit. Like, oh, you guys are actually fruit. I thought the fruit was just avatars, and like they're a bunch of like recently like born again Christians. And like one of them was voiced by David Cross, and they're just like on the verge of like, hey guys, we're just here to talk about Jesus and spread the word, and like just super unsufferable. But all of a sudden, like if something goes wrong, like I need crack right now. Like they're just like these like drug addicted like psychos. And one of them was voiced by John C. Benjamin of Archer. So like,
oh yeah.
I remember there's just this point where it's just like where one of them was like the girlfriend was like, my fiance Ted, he used to be very violent. He used to actually beat me. And they, like the David Cross character, whatever he was, like, yes, for as long as I can, for as hard as I can, until my hands were as swollen as you see them now. He just has these fat, giant, swollen hands, but not anymore, because we found Jesus, and he's just like on the verge of slipping, So it's just like some like the very fucking dark shit like that would catch me out, or even like Happy Time Harry, which is another David Cross character.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's definitely lots of great moments still in Aqua Teen, like, throughout it. But there is, you do have to kind of weave your way through it. It's, you know what I mean? I think it's one of those ones there, But I mean, still interesting stuff. Still, retro times to check out and so on. But yeah, well, that's a good old wrap up place probably right now for the show. You know what I mean? Good old shows to finish up here ourselves to watch, and then we got some Knuckles and whatever the hell else we decide to, dive into next, and some movies coming
maybe
out.
Knuckles,
But
we'll
yeah, maybe Knuckles. We'll see. He's got that parrot. It sounds like the worst thing. It's like it's not like it cost anything. Like here's the thing: if it was on DVD or Blu-ray, I'd just probably go big. $20, whatever. Fuck, I got Knuckles in my collection. That's fine. But for some reason, you go $6.99 for streaming. Then I have to think about canceling it later and seem like that sounds like more hassle than it's worth. I don't know why that kind of is. Maybe if there's a deal where you get it for a week free or something like that'd be cool. But yeah, maybe Knuckles. But we don't know all that good stuff. Go to oldmannoise.com for more podcasts, comic books like Pizza Boys, all our old animations and videos and all that kind of fun jazz. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Ryan Zenigan.
Hey, we'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.